Hello everyone, bonjour. I do have a small accent though. So I'm very glad to be here for the second time. And today I'm going to talk about Vue, Nux, and the Edge. I'm at Nux, also known as Sebastien Chopin, and I'm the CEO at nuxlabs.com. We basically do stuff around Nux.js, such as consulting, workshop, also building product around it. We recently open sourced our UI kit library. And today I'm going to talk about Vue and Nux. Who here has used or is using Nux? So I will say 50%. Hopefully after the talk it'll be more. So Nux is a web framework for creating Vue applications. And it's more than this. Nux 3 also allows you to create full stack Vue application. And that can run absolutely everywhere. But first, a small summary of the features we have. We have server-side rendering since day one. Client-side rendering, if you don't like server-side rendering or you don't need it for your single-page application, you can disable it. We have static site generation. If you have a blog, it's perfect. Edge-side rendering that I'm going to cover right after. We have a hook system, so you can absolutely change many things from the Nux core to the application part. The file system router that you may know for a long time. We have auto imports. As lazy, we don't like to have imports, but we can auto import for you when you use a component or a composable and keep having the tree shaking. We have the data fetching composable, very useful when you do server-side rendering and you don't want to have this fetch call happening on client side. So that's for hydration. We have a middleware system if you want to guard some routes, plugins. If you use Vue plugin, that's the way to go. Layouts, transitions. We also support the Vue Transition API by Google Chrome. Server routes and server API, TypeScript out of the box with zero config. State management using useState as a basic one, but you can of course use Pinia or Vuex. We have the server component, also called island components, pushing less and less JavaScript to the client, even if I'm not a big fan of this personally. Layers, so that is a feature that I haven't seen elsewhere. It's basically a way to extend a Nux application. So you can push your Nux application to NPM and extend it. So it's very useful for some part of your application that you can reuse, thinking of composable, component, even pages, and much more. We have preprocessors if you like stylus, or post-processor or post-CSS. We have this modules ecosystem, think of Nux plugin, where you can push more features to your Nux application. We have SEO helpers. Obviously, if you do server-side rendering, you want to make sure your SEO is top-notch. Testing utils and more are coming. Post-CSS and many more features that I won't cover right now. So, talking about the Edge, who knows what is the Edge of these workers? I would say about 4%. So hopefully everyone will be able to raise their hand after my talk. Otherwise, I will just change my job. So the Edge is a limited JavaScript environment running on CDN nodes. When you deploy, your code will be replicated to all the nodes. So here it's the Cloudflare network, but there are others Edge platform. So that means whenever your customer is, it will render to the closest node. Think of like you have a lot of Node.js server and you have this load balancer automatically for you. And it renders very fast. So we talk about milliseconds from end users. If I take, for example, Cloudflare network, it's about 50 milliseconds whenever you are in the world. It's actually 0 milliseconds call start compared to serverless hosting, such as AWS Lambda. No servers to maintain. It's scaled automatically, and it's quite affordable right now. We're talking about 15 cents per million requests. And there are many edge computing providers coming every month. Cloudflare pages and workers. Dino deploy, for those who use Dino. Legon.app, which is open source, so you can self-host on your own edge network. Vercel Edge Actions, powered by Cloudflare. and Netlify Edge functions powered by Dino. If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me right after. There is also Edge.io, but after testing it, it's just a proxy on top of it, so I will have to remove it. Stack paths and more are coming. But the Edge runtime has limitations, of course. Otherwise, everyone will be using it. It's different than Node and browser. It actually run V8 isolates, so it's purely JavaScript. You don't have access to window. You don't have access to the file system on the Node side. It's like 6 years ago when you heard about Nux or server-side rendering, and you try to use plugin that use window. You get a window is not defined. It's the same here if you try to access Node API or browser's API. You can't upload your website if it's more than 5 megabytes. Some providers are expanding this limit, so expect it to grow over time. But we worked on Nuxt 3 and also Nitro, the engine behind Nuxt, to fix those limitations. So we actually mock and polyfill most of the Node and browser environment to work on the edge, because most of the time, some of the API, you won't use it in production, but it's quite useful in development. And we produce and optimize output on Nuxt build. Starting with Nuxt 3, you can install Nuxt dependency as a dev dependency, not a dependency anymore. So all your dependency of your project goes to the dev dependency. And once we build your project, you'll get a dot output. So that's why you cannot run the Nuxt start command in production, because this output has no, you don't need to npm install. We trace all the dependencies and pack it inside a dot output, which is less than 1 megabyte by default. Databases are also coming to the edge. So it's mostly based on replicas and using HTTP proxy. SQLite with Cloudflare D1, which is still in alpha. Turso.tech, which has been released a few months ago, still in beta, but it's growing pretty fast. Postgres using Neon or Supabase. MySQL with PlanetScale. I may forgot some of them, so if you know, don't hesitate to tell me after my talk. Some hybrids of NoSQL and NoSQL with HarperDB, and KV such as Upstash based on Redis or Cloudflare KV. And I'm going to do a demo that I will deploy on the edge, and hopefully you'll be able to interact with this. Do I need to... Can everyone see at the back? Or you just pretend and it'd be fine. So I installed Nuxt, latest version. Can Daniel confirm it's the latest version? Yes. We have the DevTools, Tailwind CSS for the style. And I installed Nuxt Space Layer that I created especially for this demo. Nuxt Space Layer is an NPM package that is adding some utilities for my Nuxt app. I will later convert it as a module, so please don't use it in the meantime. And it will add view composable, such as use your sessions. We are working right now on an auth core module for Nuxt, but so far you can use it by creating cookies. You can make authentication by creating cookies or using the community modules right now. So I created a composable that is called use your session. And I have several utilities where I can set user session. That's as simple as this. I have a database helper, so it will use SQLite in development and D1 in production. I have auto-imported of tables that I'm going to show you while coding. I can define my tables in tables.ts, and I have a GitHub OAuth handler to handle the authentication with GitHub. So let's try to have a correct Alt tab so I look like a pro. I will extend this application, and basically this is how it looks like on the code. It is a Nuxt app with a Nuxt config and a directory, and Nuxt will extend this, and I have all the auto import in my app. So let's start development server. What it will create a Drizzle config. I'm using Drizzle ORM for my database, and it is creating the migration and the tables which are empty right now. So let's start our application. So I want you to choose between coffee or tea. because I don't know what you guys prefer. So for this, I'm going to create 2 buttons. So one for coffee and one for tea. Now I can do this. I will copy paste. Border P4. So that's some Tailwind CSS. Do you know Tailwind CSS? So I don't waste. Yes. So for those who doesn't know, please explain to your neighbor what it does. It's a collaborative session. So let's see how it looks like. Let's say it's fine. And have it here. So when I click on it, I will vote for coffee. And when I click on tea, I will vote for, thank you guys, tea. So I will have a function vote. Here I'm using script setup. So I can use the composition API right away. I will have my choice and I will console log my choice. It's easier to code when I'm sitting down usually, but that's not an excuse. So what I'm going to do is, in order to vote, I need to be authenticated. So let's authenticate my user. So for this, I have const logged in and user from user session. And I can see that it's a Boolean. So right here, I will say if I'm logged in, I will say hello user login and a button to log out. Log out. This, and I will have it underlined. So if I'm logged in, that's correct. I have a clear to remove my session. Otherwise, I will log in with GitHub to vote, please. And I will add some style. Okay, so this button will go to /API/out. So if I click on it, it doesn't exist. So let's create this API route. So to create an API route in Nuxt, it's like the pages file system. We have the same for the server. So I will create API out.ts. And I created a helper to authenticate with GitHub. So I'm exporting this GitHub OAuth event handler. And I can have on success, I get my event and my user. And I can return my user to see. Obviously, in order to this function to work, I need to fill my environment variable with a session password. So that's what I detail in the README of the layer. A client ID and a secret that goes back to the URL. So here, localhost 3000. So if I refresh, I can see that because I already authenticated this application, I'm connected. But in order to know and create the cookie for the client side, I'm going to use set user session. It needs the event. So the event is this H3. We created H3, which is our HTTP server, similar to express.js. And we have, you have access to the current URL, some params, and more goodies. And here I'm setting my user this way. And I'm going to redirect, so send redirect to my homepage. So if I Okay. On success, it's an asynchronous. Thank you for spotting this. So what I have, I'm logging in, sending back to the learning page. And if I take my cookies, if I take a look at my cookie, I have next session, and the value of it is actually encoded in the next session password. We are going to have an auth core module that will do the same, but will be more secure by giving you the ability to only set what will be public in order to only give the user ID, for instance. But let's not waste time here. And if I log out, I'm logged out. That's simple. So this, I can see that has to be rounded. Better. You saw it too. Huh? So if I'm not logged in, thank you, Copilot, it was nearly correct. I will throw an error to say you need to be logged in order to vote. So now what we want to have is the ability to vote. So for this, I'm going to create a table. So for this, I will create the votes table. So I have SQLite table, let's name it votes. And here I can give an object with the ID, which is an integer. This is the column name, so it will be the same. And I said it's a primary key. Then I want to store the user ID, which is also an integer. Let's name it user ID. And I don't want it to be null. Same for the username, but username is a text. And the choice, which is text, not null as well. What I want to add also is a unique index, because I want the user to vote only once. So I want to make sure to have it only once in the database. So it's a second argument for Drizzle or RM, but it's hard to say. Drizzle ORM. So I want to have user ID index, which is a unique index. We can name it a user ID on table.user_ID. So I'm saving. Cool, it's saved. So if I take a look at, I would have to restart, I think. So I do have a migration which has been created here. The module will do this automatically. Right now, I didn't have the time to do it automatically. And if I take a look at my SQLite database created in data, I can see my vote table. So now what I want to have is to return the list of votes. So for this, if you use this Nexter extension on VS Code, you can right-click, create a new API, and let's name it vote.get. The .get suffix only force the get HTTP method, and you automatically create the define event handler for us. So now I want to use my database. Come on. Where is my autocomplete? Here's DB. .select. I will return. So I want to select everything from my tables.vote. Then I want to order them by desk, which is the, how do you say in English? Exactly. Thank you. Tables.vote, and I give the ID and I return all. I don't have the auto import of desk right now, so I need to import it this way. And if I want to test, I don't know if you have seen this little button, it's the Nux DevTools. You can see many things in here, such as our components we have, the pages, and we have a tab for the server routes. I can get the session. This API has been injected by our layer. But what I want to see is my list of votes. It returns an array, so I expect it to be correct. So the next thing I want to do is to create the post route to post my choice. So create a new API, vote.post. And here, I'm going to be in async function. I will get the body. So here I can read the body. This is an helper from H3. We don't parse automatically the JSON requests for performances reason. So you only read them when you need to. If I don't have any body, I will make sure this is an empty object so I can destructure it to get my choice. And here I'm returning my choice. So I do have my post requests. So if I send, I can see that I have nothing here. And it returned my body properly. So what I want. Thank you. I know it's you, Alex. Waiting for your talk. So I will verify my choice. And if it's not, I will throw a create error. This is also auto-imported to send back the status code 400. Bad choice, please choose. Really, I will write a sentence right now between coffee, tea. So if I send nothing, I have this 400 error with the message. So now I know that I have the correct choice, but I want to make sure the user is authenticated in order to vote. So I can get the session with using require user session. And by having this require user session, it will throw a 4-1 if I'm not authenticated. When I do this API request, it will automatically forward my cookie as headers, and then we can read from it and see if we can authorize or not. So now I am authenticated. I can see that, and I will vote again. It works. So what I need to do now, in order to finish the API part, is to save it in my database. So I'm going to also call usedb.insert. I need the table here. So tables.vote, values. So that's the entry. I need the user ID, which is inside my session.user.id. I can verify here, user.id. Username, which is session username, and the choice, obviously. So Drizzle ORM had this type safety for you, so that's why we had this ugly part here. And what I want is to return and get the value. And I will return my vote. You may have seen that the whole Nuxt server doesn't restart. It's because we are in Nuxt 3 right now. And in Nuxt 3, we have Nitro, which creates a worker for you every time. So we found a way to separate your client bundle, your app bundle, client and server, and the server part. So when you change only the server, we restart only the server API part. So that's why it feels like hot module replacement on the server. So let's vote again. I have my vote. And if I try to vote again, I have this error based on the unique index we created. So what we can do is on conflict, we can update. So the conflict is based on the table.vote user ID. And what I want to do is change my choice. So I can save, it's the same ID. It's working. Okay, now let's go back to our index page. Otherwise, you won't be able to vote, except if you can with your mobile phone do API requests. But let's simplify this. What I want to do here is make an API call to thank you Nuxt and TypeScript for auto-completing my API route. This is partially true, Copilot. I don't need to JSON stringify. Next, we do it for me with $fetch. And what I want to do when I post it is to actually refresh. So what I'm going to list is the activity. So for that, I'm going to list all the votes. Do you know what method I'm going to use? Okay, Copilot. He knows. Or she knows, I don't know. Probably she. And I will await. Next, use suspend under the hood to await. And only this once we are done doing the data fetching. And I will display the vote like this. So I'm done with the DevTools. Thank you. So now when I'm changing, because I can refresh automatically, I don't need to refresh the page. It will automatically make the API call, update votes, and thanks to Vue reactivity, update the template that use this variable. What would be nice though is to know what is my current vote. So user choice computed, and I will note vote.value, find, so I have my vote. Let's try this. Is if the vote.user ID equal user.value if I'm authenticated .id, and I get the choice. Let's display it here, user choice, coffee or tea. Thank you. So let's make a dynamic class so it looks a bit pretty. I think you may have noticed that we don't have a background on hover, and I think it looks nicer this way. And it's important when I add the exclamation mark, but you don't have to do this. I will say a border black. If user, this is quite ugly, and you can refactor this later and open a pull request. I know you will. And this is T. Okay, I can do some view and style. And here also, I think we need to round. Nicer. Okay. So what we have now is we can vote. I have my list of votes. I will simply do a loop here, so it'll look a bit nicer. Vote of votes. And I guess Copilot will help me. Thank you. Vote.username. Voted for user choice. Font medium. And let's make it nicer for this coffee. Yes. Okay. Last thing I want to do is to pretend it's real time. So for this, two things. I want to have the total of coffee to know who is the winner, which one is the winner. Vote value, filter, with choice. Sounds good. I only turn Copilot for this demo. Usually I don't use it that much. Thank you. Lee Martin. Total coffee, and I know I'm wasting a lot of time just making, is it total the end to that? Okay. And lastly, pretending it's real time. So on mount. Okay. So what I want to do is only on mounted, I will create a center interval. I don't want to do this on server side, even though I'm using the edge rendering, so it will shut down the server-side rendering call. But if you use Node.js, you don't want to create interval when you do server-side rendering for memory leaks. And before on before and mount. Okay, thank you. Apparently, I'm missing this. So if we look at the network tab, not that nice, but for the purpose of this demo, we stay like this. And if I log out, I can see the vote, but I cannot vote. So I created a GitHub repository named coffee or tea, and I will say demo should be working. So I'm going to my Cloudflare account. I created Pages project. I linked it to my GitHub repository. In the settings, I added my environment variables to connect with GitHub. I may have to change this client secret after the talk. Okay, I know you guys already remember. And I specify, so smart placement is just for me to test. I created a D1 database. So right now I didn't find a way to automate the migration, but what you can do is go to console, open those migration in here, copy paste in the console, and it will create the same database as you had in development, except the entries, of course. What I have left is connecting this database and name it D1DB. The layer will automatically connect it in production. And I'm using, I think for the build, the latest version they released last week, the beta 2, that support Node 18 and PNPM. So just running npm run build, we will automatically know that you're using Cloudflare Worker. So we will bundle it as a worker, preset worker, yes. So you can go to coffee or tea.pages.dev, or you can normally scan this QR code. I will give you a minute. I will wait for everyone to vote in order to finish my talk anyway. And hopefully, if this works, I will try to vote myself. Oh, and now we just broke the Wi-Fi. Okay, so I can vote. Okay, it's working. So definitely coffee is winning. How dare you? So what we have now is, if I go to my D1 database, I can see that I do have the votes coming in. And the advantage of this is it's replicated everywhere in the world. So by just, wow, thank you guys. By just reading, it's very fast. So what I'm going to show you is another demo I created, where same here, you can log in. So this is done, not the parade. It also has server-side rendering, and it actually renders with server-side rendering normally in less than 200 milliseconds while querying my database. So this demo here, I played with multiple providers. So I deployed it to Cloudflare Pages and D1, but there is also Turso, which is same SQLite running on the edge. So on Cloudflare Pages, Legon, Vercel Edge, and Netlify Edge. So you can take a look at the source code. It's the same source code, just environment variable that changes. And it works with zero configuration on most of those providers. The advantage of this is I made this API call that is querying my database to list. So making sure this call is actually calling my database. And you can see in many locations around the world, it renders in less than 300 milliseconds. No server to maintain, no database to maintain. It just works so you can focus on building your app. So this is working now. You can see the code is open source under the MIT license on @linux/coffee or tea. The other demo, I also played, this one, I think I'll be done. It's called atinos.pages.dev. It's using Cloudflare KV instead of database. You can double click here and say, hello, VueConf US. I'm using Markdown here, VueConf US. So it will automatically save the page, have each side rendering. And here I can say, whoa, it works, baby. And save. If I refresh, my page is here. And I also added this OG image generation working also on the edge. That's it. And I think I'm late now. All the code is open source on my GitHub account. Thank you very much.